we're here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bringing news just for you. It's Monday, July 27th here in Seoul. I'm Isujin, and this is News Generation. Joining us today is Kyun.
Thank you for having me.
For coming in. Also, Niall's with us.
Good morning.
And both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. So we're at the start of a new work week, and for many people, that also means keeping an eye on the markets. And whether you're a seasonal investor or just getting started, one decision can make or break your returns, choosing the right stock. So Kyun, there's a lot of tips going around about stocks. What do you think matters the most when you're investing in one?
Oh, I think there are many important factors to consider when you actually want to invest in a stock. Some people actually do their due diligence to actually look into the financial statements, read the chart, read the news, keep themselves updated to see what's going to happen. Whereas you have people who just ask their friends who seem to be good at investing or seem to be making a profit and ask them, oh, should I invest in this? Can you give me a tip?
What are you investing in?
Yeah, like, can you show me a portfolio, which is a good stock to invest in right now? Or just sometimes ask experts if they do have the opportunity. But I honestly think, for me, actually, I tend to invest in stocks that are very familiar to me and that I'm genuinely kind of interested in. Usually the big names, but I used to invest in like a big sportswear company because I used to wear a lot of the clothes. And the reason is I can gain actually deeper understanding of the chart flow and the future aspects of the company. So my investment doesn't become too speculative. So I can always keep myself updated because I'm genuinely interested in that. Also, I think another important part is knowing exactly when to sell after you make an investment in a stock. Because if you're making a profit, hey, that's great. But then because stock market can be very volatile, your gain can become suddenly a loss in just a few days. So knowing exactly when to sell is another important aspect to think about when you actually invest in a stock.
I think these are all good ideas. So what about you, Niall?
I think the proper answer to give is you should invest by whether you know if the company has potential to grow or not and whether consumers are willing to take the products from them. But also you have to think about how long you want to invest, how much you want to invest, as Ki-hoon mentioned. But there's this new phenomenon, the FOMO, obviously, in the stock market in Korea. It's so difficult because you said that I have 10% increase from my original stock and I'm going to leave now versus everyone else is making 200% profit. So I think really picking that time and saying, I am done, I am out.
So even when you believe in a company, you still need to think about the bigger picture, how much you're investing and how long you're prepared to wait for the returns. And we're going to talk more about this, but first, let's take a look at the screen. Investing has become a national pastime in Korea with people of all ages jumping into the stock market. But lately, investors have been looking beyond the usual tech giants and turning their attention to something much closer to home: homegrown Korean companies. Today on News Generation, we explore what's driving the rise of patriotic investment, its impact on the broader market, and whether our panelists would use their money to back their country. Just as we saw in the video, investing isn't always driven by profits alone. For some Koreans, buying a stock has become a way to actually support companies they believe deserve to do well and to survive. So what exactly is this new trend these days going around investors called patriotic investing?
Patriotic investing is basically like an online community trend where people started to buy homegrown stocks and their products and services to actually keep them alive. Now, what I mean by keep them alive is raising the market capitalization of a company over a certain threshold to avoid delisting. Now, over 30 billion won, roughly $20 million for a company listed in the benchmark Kospi, and over 20 billion won, around $13 million for firms listed in the tech-heavy Kosdaq. Now, the reason is, starting from July, financial authorities have tightened listing regulations by requiring companies to maintain market capitalization that I just mentioned to enforce a stronger and confident stock market for everyone, and obviously for people overseas as well. So some companies that were actually facing delisting risks by not meeting the requirements actually benefited from the so-called patriotic buying from all these people trending online by obviously seeing their market capitalizations going over that minimum threshold. And obviously, there are a lot of debatable topics online saying that these people were probably perhaps shareholders of these companies from the beginning. But also, I think just if you look at the overall kind of sentiment, it's good to see that a lot of investors, retail investors, individual investors are seeing these companies, they want to see them listed because they've had fond memories of these companies and they're actually doing a great job, trying to at least, even in this tough market. So it's a trend that we're seeing becoming very viral among many young people, especially.
Right. So for many investors, the goal wasn't just about making money, it was about helping keeping these companies afloat. And that naturally raises the question of what sparked this movement in the first place. So what kind of companies or what kind of movement started this patriotic investment trend?
Right, it's so fascinating to say patriotic investment, right? But the movement was sparked by Hansong Enterprise, a company known for manufacturing crab sticks. I don't know if you guys are familiar with krabi, but as the company's market capitalization declined, social media users highlighted that Hansong Enterprise had sponsored concerts for UN veterans for the past 25 years. So this led to a growing online campaign encouraging people to support this patriotic company facing risk of delisting. And many retail investors rushed and shared their screenshots on social media to prove that they had purchased the company's stock. And despite the company's operating profit falling by nearly 50% year over year, there were no major earning improvements or new business announcements. Instead, the buying momentum was fueled primarily by social media-driven public support rather than the business performance. And the online campaign translated into increased buying activity from individual retail investors, whether it be their stock or their actual product.
I mean, it's truly fascinating how a company's story and values can sometimes outweigh its financial performance. And these are companies, listening to their stories, that truly deserve this. And Hansong Enterprise, though, wasn't the only company to benefit from that sentiment. So which other companies have seen similar types of support from the investors?
There are a few more, actually. Starting with Monami, a ballpoint pen manufacturer, experienced a lot of support from individual investors. Now, it's a company widely regarded as a leading domestic brand that offers an alternative to its main competitor, Japanese brand pens. Now, people my age and probably above, I'm not sure about people who are much younger than me, have at least used one of these pens and stationery growing up. So there is that added nostalgic sentiment investing in this brand. Now, another company that saw home support was laundry maker Bibian, and more retail investors actually bought shares in a furniture company called NX after reports highlighted its long-standing donations of furniture to childcare centers and social welfare organizations. So it also highlights what Naya just mentioned about Hansong Enterprise, how they've been supporting a UN veteran like a concert as a charity cause. So I think people are more kind of interested in that kind of aspect of a company as well.
And you mentioned how nostalgia is a big part. Like, these are all like household names.
They
it's
are.
kind of surprising that they needed this help in the first place. It's good that investors are taking the interest in this. So it seems the investors weren't just buying stocks, they're buying into each company's identity and values. And that brings us to the bigger picture behind this trend. So why is patriotic investing gaining momentum now, Niall?
So market analysts say retail investors are moving beyond this short-term theme investing, and instead they're increasingly considering the company's long-term survival, including its ability to remain listed and enhance its corporate value. And this suggests that the emergence of new investment culture that combines financial returns as well as the support for a company's long-term sustainability, And the keyword here to note is ESG. Today's consumers, particularly Gen Z and millennials, place greater importance on the company's ESG, which is environmental, social, and governance practices. So ESG refers to the company's performance in areas such as environmental climate action, carbon emissions, and sustainability. And then social, employee welfare, community engagement, and human rights, as well as governance, which is ethical management, transparency, and corporate accountability. And one survey found that 70% of consumers said that they would pay more for products from companies with strong ESG practices, reflecting the growing importance of corporate values in purchasing decisions.
So investing today is becoming about more than financial returns. It's also about social values and also long-term impact. And that shift reflects changing priorities among today's investors and consumers alike. And to help us further unpack why this trend is emerging and what it could mean for the broader market, we'll be joined by an economist. And that conversation is coming up right after the break, so don't go anywhere.
NewsGen wants to hear from you. Go to YouTube and search out channel Arirang News. Click Posts and cast your vote in the poll. Make a new type of news with us.
We're now joined by Professor Kwak Chun-hee, Assistant Professor of Economics at Seogang University. Hello, Professor. Thank you so much for connecting with us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me today.
All right, so we talked about patriotic investing, what it is and how it started, but is this unique to Korea or do other countries have their own versions of patriotic investing?
Right, so it's not just Korea. Almost every country does some version of it. And more broadly, economists even have a name for it, a little bit different concept, but we call it home country bias. So people simply put too much money into their own country's stocks. What makes Korea special is how openly patriotic it got. Back in 2020, when foreigners were selling, Koreans jumped in to buy up Korean stocks on purpose. They even named the movement proudly the Donghak anti-movement after an old uprising. But other places do it too as well. In the US, people talk about buying American, and there's even research showing how deep this runs. For example, companies with America or USA in their name earned about 6% extra per year during World War II, the Korean War. And patriotic investing is not only a personal feeling, government actually actively push it. For example, in 2024, US lawmakers even introduced a Patriotic Investment Act aimed at discouraging Americans from putting money into Chinese assets. So it becomes national policy, not just sentiment, and Japan and China do their own versions of this too. And finally, Korea's story shows the money kept swinging back and forth for a while. Many investors chased bigger gains in US stocks, but now, with the Kospi on a huge run and local stocks up, last year the money is rushing back home. People call it a second Donghak anti-movement, so which way the money flows really depends on where the returns are, which is why it's hard to tell real patriotism apart from people simply chasing the best returns.
Thank you for that, Professor Kwak. My next question to you is, what are the biggest risks of investing based on sentiment rather than the company's underlying fundamentals?
So the biggest risk is that excitement that includes patriotism makes you buy high and sell low. the exact opposite of what makes money. When everyone's excited about the stock, that excitement is usually already baked into the price. You end up paying extra for a good feeling, not for a good business. And this is not new. More broadly, history is full of bubbles that all follow the same pattern. It starts with a real good story, then people pile in and prices climb, then everyone borrows and buys just because prices are going up. Maybe this is due to patriotism. And finally, the mood flips and it all comes crashing down. It's the same cycle over and over, driven by emotion, not by the actual value of the thing. And I think a huge part of that is FOMO, not just because of patriotism, and that's what we call the fear of missing out. When you see friends, the news, and social media all getting rich on something, it feels almost painful to sit it out. But FOMO gets loudest right near the top when prices are highest and the risk is the greatest. The second risk is putting many eggs in one basket. Patriotic or emotional investing pushes you toward a few familiar local names. But if your job, your paycheck, and your savings are all tied to the same country, one bad year hits all of them at once.
All right, but I think this is kind of an extension of that last bit you were saying. What advice would you give people considering patriotic investing?
Yeah, that's actually a good question. So first of all, keep the proud citizen and the smart investor separate. You already support your country by living, working, and paying taxes there. Your investments have one job, to grow and protect your money. Second, spread your money out, as I have mentioned. If it's almost all there, that's not patriotism. It's just risky. Owning some foreign investment is not disloyal. It's how you make sure one country's bad decade doesn't wreck your whole future. Third, if you do buy local companies, buy them for the numbers, not the flag. Ask yourself, would I still buy this at this price if it were from another country? If the answer is no, you are paying extra just for the feeling. Finally, make your rules ahead of time while you are calm. Decide how much you'll invest and what would make you sell. And write it down before the headlines and the hype get loud. That's it.
Thank you.
All right. So, I have just begun dabbling in investing. So this was advice that I also needed to hear. So this is really important. I guess I will be level-headed and make my decisions on fundamentals and not just about my own emotions. So thank you for your advice and for coming on today, Professor.
Yeah, thank you and good luck.
Thank you.
So we just heard from an economics professor about how patriotic investing compares with similar trends overseas, the risk of investing with emotions instead of fundamentals, and what investors should keep in mind before joining the movement. But this trend isn't just changing the way people invest, it's also influencing the way they spend. So how is patriotic investing influencing everyday spending here?
So this sentiment has spread into the 돈줄 culture that is becoming very popular among the younger generations here in Korea, and it's very similar to patriotic buying. So the term refers to rewarding companies that have made a positive social impact through socially conscious consumption by literally spending money on the company and its services and products. So in this case, support for the company is extended to buying beyond stock purchases to buying their products like the crab meat from Hansang Enterprise and ballpoint pens from Monami. So, and this spending culture has further taken the form of consumers patronizing convenience stores or even fried chicken restaurants that have kind of quietly helped people in need. So one local government even created a 돈줄 map featuring businesses that actually support the less fortunate residents in trying to help them become more self-reliant. So what they did was they made this map trying to encourage and spread the awareness and the recognition to the public so that people find out more about their quiet deeds.
I think it's good that there is a growing awareness about what these companies are doing, and they deserve to do well.
Of course.
Because I do understand the sentiment. So for many young consumers, supporting a company's values doesn't stop at just buying its stock. It extends to buying its products too. And of course, consumers can also use their wallets to then send the opposite message. So how are consumers using their spending power to hold certain companies accountable for their actions?
So I guess we can say that the 돈줄 concept Ki-hoon talked about is boycott, where you support companies through purchases.
Right.
And then, of course, consumer boycotts have also become a very strong way that Gen Z and millennials are expressing their own values. Recently, a large-scale boycott was targeting a company that was linked to a fatal industrial accident, and then a coffee franchise that we all know about, accused of using historically revisionist marketing, and boycott happened there as well. And these campaigns gained significant traction online and ultimately led to declining sales for the companies involved. Now, let's talk about the women in their 20s and 30s who are considered one of the most active consumer groups that play the key role in shaping online public opinion. This demographic increasingly evaluates in companies that are based not only on just brand recognition, but also in their corporate ethics, social responsibility, as well as overall corporate values. As a result, a company's reputation and ethical conduct are becoming increasingly important factors in consumers' purchasing decisions.
So it's clear that for many consumers today, a company's reputation is becoming just as important as its product or prices. So let's wrap things up on a more personal note. So Kyun, you mentioned earlier in the intro that you do buy stocks that you're personally actually interested, you like their products. So what about in this situation? Would you invest in a company to support them?
I think it really depends. If I were originally a shareholder of that company, obviously I would support them by actually buying more shares if I could, if I had more cash right now. But I think many young consumers put importance in the ethics, moral practice of a company, and in turn can actually change their preference, as there are so many different alternatives, different companies to invest in that in the similar field. Now, I tend to have a similar mindset. Now, if the quality of a product is made through unjust, unfair sacrifice of workers and the company is not very transparent, like I said, there are many different options to choose from. So I guess it will help me to change my mind to either support it or even turn away from a company.
What about you, Niall?
Personally, after this entire segment, I want to say that my personal investment is investment, not charity. So I think while it's great that many people have spoken up and this is their way of showing their values, I like to keep my method of investment as investment and separate that with things and causes I want to support. So would I just go for it because it's a patriotic investment? I don't think so. And I think the professor really spoke well on this. Think about whether if this wasn't a Korean company, would I invest this much into it? I think it's a good question to ask ourselves.
It is. And patriotic investing shows that our values can influence not only what we buy, but also where we put our money. But while supporting homegrown companies can be meaningful, investing still requires a careful look at the fundamentals, risks, and also the long-term potential. And in the end, the smartest investment may be one that balances what you believe in with what the numbers actually tell you. That brings us to the end of today's episode of News Generation. And News Gen will be back tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Korea time with more stories and discussions. Big thanks to Q.
It's always a pleasure.
And also Niall.
Thanks for having me.
And to our viewers, thank you so much for watching. And just remember, patriotism may be priceless, but your portfolio isn't. We are
News Generation.